This may sound pedantic. It may sound silly. But I mean this. Has Kamala Harris ever told a public truth? Now, part of this game is a very, very clever game that politicians play, is to be the person that everybody can identify with. Oh, Kamala Harris is a moderate. No, I saw her give a speech. She's a very, very moderate lady. She has very moderate ideas. Oh, I saw her give a speech, and she's the first politician who's come out and said, oh, yeah, no, I'll go grab the guns. I'll grab all the guns. I'll have a national ban on the guns. Kamala Harris is an Indian American and proud of it. Kamala Harris is an African American and proud of it. Her family's not from Africa, but she's African American because, of course, the word black has been turned into a race. It's not. It's not a race. It's a color. So part of this is being able to pour yourself into any and all containers, and at that, Kamala Harris is perfectly, perfectly suited. It's very evident she has no grounding morality, certainly not the word of God, not the rock of the Lord. She can pour herself into a container as a hard-edged prosecutor who laughs and giggles as she puts the parents of black kids in prison or jail because their kids are turned to school. She laughs about it. Then she can turn around and laugh and giggle as she's bailing out or helping to bail out terrorists who went after cops and actually got some killed and took over American cities. This is a pastiche. I can be whatever anybody needs me to be at any moment, so long as that returns power to me. But there is a core issue here. Can God bless a country that has become the lie? When we choose a queen, and if this country chooses Kamala Harris, she will act like a queen. If she steals the election, she'll act even more like a queen. And she's willing to do both, and so is the DNC, and we know that. When we have someone like that running our country who is, in fact, not able to be truthful, how can she have anything in alignment with God? Because remember this, God isn't truthful. God is truth. He is the thing. Like he is light, like he is justice, like he is mercy. How then can our country have anything in common with God when our queen is not someone who lies? She has become the lie. And that has huge, huge theological issues to become the lie. I'll give you some signs of this, specifically what they're trying to do to J.D. Vance on social media, and Kamala Harris has been filthy on this, absolutely filthy. You can have a room that is generally clean but smells filthy. It can be because, let's say you run an Airbnb. I'm going to be staying in a BRBO. I don't do Airbnb because of what they've done politically, but I'm going to be staying in a BRBO when I'm down at SealFits, even though I'm going to be awake for, 24 to 50 hours. That room, that place I've rented, I'm sure is going to be well taken care of because I looked at the reviews. If you are a BRBO or an Airbnb owner, here's something you can do to make sure that every single guest walks in and has the experience of opening the door and having completely fresh air. It's the OxyLeaf 2 Thunderstorm device from EdenPureDeals.com. Use code TOD3. You'll save $200 in this device. I got a note on YouTube. This guy's been with me for years. He's been with me in the radio show in Seattle back in the local radio days, prior to the national radio days. He left me a note on YouTube, and it reads this. Hey, Todd, single middle-aged man here, and I trusted your recommendation for Eden Pure and have zero regrets. I do not need to use wax scents any longer. My house smells nice and clean. Thank you for the deal, Average Joe. Of course, I wrote back and said, hey, Joe, thank you, brother. This device produces ozone in your home, your business, your Airbnb, your BRBO, your dorm, your RV. Those molecules destroy the things that create bad smells. It even helps destroy viruses from the air. Again, it's EdenPureDeals.com. Enter code TOD3. You will save $200 and you will breathe a breath of fresh air again. Also pulled from social media, this is what Kamala HQ said about J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance responds to the deadly shooting in Georgia by saying school shootings are just a fact of life and attacking common sense safety, gun safety reform. So, man, that's a terrible thing to say, that it's just a fact of life. Just something we need to deal with and accept. Here's what J.D. Vance actually said. And by the way, this is linked. This is actually from the Kamala HQ tweet. They don't even bother editing it because they know that most of their followers aren't going to click on the link.
Now look, the Kamala Harris answer to this is to take law-abiding American citizens' guns away from them. That is what Kamala Harris wants to do. Look, I don't like this. I don't like to admit this. I don't like that this is a fact of life. But if you are a psycho and you want to make headlines, you realize that our schools are soft targets. And we have got to bolster security at our schools so that a person who walks through the front door We've got to bolster security so that if a psycho wants to walk through the front door and kill a bunch of children, they're not able to. And again, as a parent, do I want my kid's school to have additional security? No, of course I don't. I don't want my kids to go to school in a place where they feel like you've got to have additional security, but that is increasingly the reality that we live in.
Having worked in a gang-impacted government school, having been through a situation where towards the last, may have even been the last day of school, some teens drove onto our campus. It was an elementary school. One of them leaned out the window of a car with a sawed-off shotgun and was shooting up the windows as myself and another gentleman ran out and got the kids to take shelter and drug them under one of the portable trailers and brought them in as quickly as we could. I can tell you that can flat change a person. Having been someone who was forced, I think, to put a gun up in the face of four men, who seemed really intent on kidnapping my daughter, that's a hard thing to do, to face four men and threaten to kill them if they take another step towards my daughter. Now, my daughter remembers that incident. She remembers that I had a gun. I didn't shoot anybody, but she had a feeling that my dad will do what's necessary to defend me. And yes, I would. And I'd do the same for your kids, I think. It's a terrible thing to think about. But common sense safety reform, gun safety reform, means what? Do the math. In a nation with hundreds and hundreds of millions of guns, how exactly do you go grab them from people who would harm others? The people who are going to give up their guns are rule followers. And I have news for you. Most legal gun owners are not going to play. We're not going to give up our guns. Absent a constitutional amendment changing, erasing, doing away with the Second Amendment, the government has absolutely no right whatsoever to infringe on that ownership, period. We would be well within our rights as Christians to say, no, that's not legal. You have a controlling legal authority in this country. It's the Constitution. Kamala Harris isn't even necessarily telling the truth when she says she's going to go grab the guns, because she's just as likely to say, I'm not willing to grab the guns. Can a nation who's placing people like this in positions of power, and she is called the vice president, can we have blessings from God when we're placing people into office who are the lie? Joe Biden is a lie. He's no longer capable of understanding truth. God is truth. He is justice. He is mercy. He is love. He can't not be those things. The Democrat Party has become the lie. This is Kamala Harris's account accusing J.D. Vance of telling women to stay in violent marriages.
And this is one of the great tricks that I think the sexual revolution pulled on the American populace, which is this idea that, like, well, okay, these marriages were fundamentally, they were maybe even violent, but certainly they were unhappy. And so getting rid of them and making it easier for people to shift spouses like they change their underwear, that's going to make people happier in the long term. And maybe it worked out for the moms and dads, though I'm skeptical, but it really didn't work out for the kids of those marriages.
So here's what Kamala HQ said about what you just watched or heard J.D. Vance say. Unearthed video. J.D. Vance says women should stay in violent marriages for the sake of the kids. It's linked in their own tweet. They don't even bother to edit it to make it say what they claim it said. It's not what J.D. Vance said. And by the way, J.D. Vance grew up in a home of violence. He watched his mother be victimized by it. He wrote about it. He wrote about his mother self-medicating with drugs, obviously. You think he knows something about a violent home? I don't know any Christian man who I know who would tell a woman you have to stay in a violent relationship. I know there's pastors who've said it. And I would just ask him this. If you believe that Christian women are the daughter of God, the daughter of the Lord Jesus, one God, three persons, do you honestly believe that God would say, stay there and get beat? No, I think he'd say, get to a place of safety. Try to work this through with the marriage. But the husband, you're to love your wife like Christ loved the church. You'd be falling down. You'd be sinning. J.D. Vance didn't say stay in the marriage. He questioned the quick divorces, the no-fault divorces that people go through on a multi-time basis and what it does to family structure and solidity and predictability for kids. There are reasons for people to leave marriages. I have sadly seen people forced to leave marriages for violence, sometimes for verbal abuse. God abhors divorce. Even when it's justified, he abhors it. Kamala Harris has promised to do something. On this, I actually think I smell her telling truth.
And will put the Department of Justice of the United States back in the business of justice. We will double the Civil Rights Division and direct law enforcement to counter this extremism. We will hold social media platforms accountable for the hate infiltrating their platforms because they have a responsibility to help fight against this threat to our democracy. And if you profit off of hate, if you act as a megaphone for misinformation or cyber warfare, if you don't police your platforms, we are going to hold you accountable as a community.
Why do I think she's telling the truth when she speaks to the National Association of Colored People, a race-based group, a group that's focused on one race? Because there's a common thread in why Kamala Harris lies: to gain power. Period. Nothing says power like being able to put a boot on someone's face and say, you can't say that. Or, as is just as common now in this world, you have to say this. Well, I mean, if you want to eat.